Hey everyone, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I am McKinley412, and today we're going to be looking at this nice early 4-game slate. I love these early game slates; they're my favorite ones. I don't know, maybe because I've had the most success with them, but yeah. So no other concerns that we have to be paying attention to. Pretty straightforward slate, I think. We've had some tricky ones as of late. Some kind of muddled teams, but this one seems pretty clear. So we'll just go kind of right through it. Zach Wheeler right up at the top, going up against Texas. He's like your clear like super ace. Super ace is the right word, but clearly the SP1 in your cash builds. 10.5 is a little bit steep in my opinion. However, given the rest of the pitchers on this slate, I think in cash builds at least, you're just going to have to plug and play regardless of his price tag. There is quite a bit of value out there, so it shouldn't be too difficult to fit him in with an SP2 and some nice bats to go along with him. Below, we got Luis Garcia facing off against the New York Mets. Mets are a great team against right-handed pitching. They have the second lowest strikeout rate, and they also have like the second highest WRC plus on offense. So they do well against right-handed pitchers, which kind of downgrades Luis Garcia a little bit. He's not my favorite pitcher on the slate. I think I have him ranked. Where do I have him ranked? I don't even know what. We'll get to that later. But Garcia, I think this is a GPP at best kind of play. In a 4-game slate, everybody's kind of in play. But yeah, this would be a GPP for me. I wouldn't be touching him in cash. GIOLITO below him at 8.7K. This is your ultimate GPP play here. We all know GIOLITO's ceiling of 10Ks, getting 30 plus DK points, but we have all seen his floor, especially lately. You can kind of see the disaster that has been GIOLITO the past month or so. His walk rate is through the roof. He's allowing home runs through the roof. Earned runs, obviously, with all of that put together, has created some pretty ugly things. Now he goes up against Toronto, which Toronto against right-handed pitching is pretty actually middle of the pack. We think of Toronto as like this big slugging team, big bats and everything, but overall they're pretty middle of the table. So GIOLITO, I mean, I think this is one of your best GPP shot in the dark. Hope he has one of his ceiling games kind of plays because his recent history has been ugly. CARRASCO, 8K. I think this is probably one of my favorite of the top 4. This is probably my second favorite guy. So it would go Wheeler, Carrasco, and then Garcia and GIOLITO. I probably Garcia safer, but GIOLITO does have more upside. So that's kind of how I would rank the top 4. Carrasco in years past, he was kind of always like that boomer bust kind of pitcher. He's pretty much kept it similar this season. You can kind of see as we go down, like he's had his games where it is ugly, but he's also had great games to just mix right in there. He's going up against Houston, a tough matchup as a right-handed pitcher going up against Houston with all those nice bats. Alvarez, Tucker, Bregman, Altuve. Sorry, I want to put Altuve in front of Bregman, but still, Houston, they got great numbers against right-handed pitching, but I still think, Carrasco with his strikeout rate, especially his strikeout rate in the past month, he clearly deserves some attention, especially at 8K, given the rest of the pitchers on this slate. So we'll go over here. That's kind of where I ranked them. Wheeler number 1, Carrasco number 2. I guess I put Garcia 3rd, just for safety, and then GIOLITO would be more of like that GPP play for you. On the cheap side, 4 guys. John Gray going up against Philly. Gray, you're just kind of looking for strikeouts with this guy. He has shown his strikeout ability, especially in the past month here. Going up against Philly. Philly doesn't strike out too much against right-handed pitching. So certainly a GPP play for sure. If you can limit those Philly bats and get a double-digit strikeout at 7.2K, phenomenal. Probably the best ceiling of all of the 4 guys remaining down here, but floor matchup, it's a little bit weaker than some of the other guys. Clevinger has kind of been in and out. He got injured here after the Philly game, and then he was out on the IL. He came back, threw for 60 pitches, got COVID, and then after COVID, he only did 39 pitches. It was just in relief. It was totally expected. So I think he's good to go here, though. If he can get a 75, get back up to 75, 80 pitches against Arizona and that weak offense against right-handed pitching, I think he's a great play at 6.7K. Could be a popular SP2. You could argue him. I guess you could argue Stripling could be in there, and I'll explain why later on. But Clevinger, if he can get that 75 to 80 pitches, go 5 innings, rack up 5-6 strikeouts against Arizona, 6.7 is too cheap for him on this slate. Bumgarner, I don't want any interest in. He's my least favorite pitcher on the entire slate. And then Ross Stripling, 5.2K, about as low as you can go with a starting pitcher that you know is going to go quite a few innings. He gets the White Sox. If you have watched these videos in the past, you know the White Sox are the best team in the league against left-handed pitching, bar none. I love playing them. It doesn't matter who the pitcher is. I love playing them against left-handed pitching. However, against right-handed pitching, they're a bottom 10 offense. So they really struggle against right-handers. And Stripling, you know, he's shown that he can kind of limit the damage while also putting up some strikeouts. So if he's going to go 4 or 5 innings, even if he doesn't get, 5 innings and get in line with the win, if he can go 4 innings, strike out a couple of guys, he can get you double-digit DK points. He pays off his salary at only 5.2K. We're getting a big discount here. So Chicago struggling against righties. The price, I think that it's viable that you could get him at an SP2, especially if you want to jam in those very expensive San Diego bats going up against Bumgarner. So that's kind of the pitchers in a nutshell. This is kind of where we're at. Wheeler, CARRASCO, and then GARCIA, GIOLITO. You guys can read. So looking towards the bats, we'll just go kind of game by game here. So Toronto, Chicago White Sox. This is the highest over/under total on the entire slate. It's at 9.5. All the other games are at 8.5. But I gotta admit, I'm having a tough read on this game, just because I don't know how the pitchers are going to shake out. Which GIOLITO are we going to see, and how far can Stripling go into the game? So on the Toronto side, I don't think they're going to see a whole lot of ownership, because in cash, I mean, people are going to be flocking to San Diego, and GIOLITO, he can shut them down, and they're very expensive, 5.5, 5.2, 4.7 on down. So I don't think you're going to have the salary to jam them in with San Diego, with throwing in Wheeler at 10.5K. So I don't see them going own cash. But on the GPP side of things, I could see people going with GIOLITO, just because he has one of the highest ceilings that we have seen. Well, not that we have seen, but one of the higher ceilings of the pitchers on the slate. And given his recent form, he's probably going to drop his ownership even more. So people maybe want to look at him for their builds. So if you're going GIOLITO, you're not playing Toronto. So I don't know what this Toronto ownership is going to look like. On the other side of things, you got the White Sox going up against Stripling. I mentioned it before. The White Sox are a bottom 10 offense against right-handed pitching so far this season. Now, obviously, Stripling is nowhere near the level of some of the pitchers that they have faced, but still, it's worth noting. I still think that they could be a fine GPP play for sure. New York Mets, Houston Astros. This one's really intriguing to me, just because you have 2 of the top 5 teams in the league against right-handed pitching. All the numbers are fantastic. I will say the Mets are a little bit buoyed by a good BABIP. So maybe Garcia does a little bit better than is expected. The Mets bats do a little bit worse just because they have been really lucky so far this season. But still, the Mets and Houston, if I was going to be targeting the Houston bats, Alvarez has to be in there. His ISO against right-handed pitching so far this season is over 400. It's just video game numbers at this point. Altuve, he's got fantastic numbers. Brantley, Tucker, etc. On the other side of things, if you're going to go with the Mets bats, it's going to be, let's see, check to see if McNeil's going to be in there. I was on outfield. Check to see if McNeil's going to be in there. He's got pretty solid numbers, so I don't mind him at 3.5K. It's going to be Pete Alonso, even Guillorme at 2.3K. If he's in there, even if he's batting lower in the order, he's got some nice numbers that could go up against right-handed pitching. Really, a lot of these lefties, Nemo, good spot. So you got good offenses going up against, good pitchers. So it's going to be intriguing to see which one wins out in that battle. We'll skip to the San Diego side. San Diego is going to be the chalk cash play of the day. Machado, obviously check to see if he's in. But if you go Machado, Profar, Voit, you kind of see Alfaro. If Alfaro is playing, he's probably going to be a lock-in for me at 3.7K, given the numbers that he has against left-handed pitching. But let's see. I haven't done this yet. We'll see if you throw in Wheeler with the stud San Diego bats. We'll put in Clevinger. Where are you at? 3.2K. Gets a little tight, but entirely possible. If you throw in Stripling instead, 3.6K for your remaining bats, easily doable. So yeah, so you can jam in Wheeler, you can jam in all those chalky San Diego guys in cash, and just kind of fill in around that. On the Arizona side of things, going up against Clevinger, I said I like Clevinger. It doesn't mean that Arizona is going to get shut out by any means. They're certainly in play. It's going to be Walker. It's going to be Varsho. Alec Thomas, he's got solid numbers, 2.7K. He typically bats like 7th, lower in the lineup. But these three guys, if you just start right there with an Arizona stack, I got no qualms with that. So that would be fantastic. On the Philly Texas game, I skipped it just because I don't have too much interest in it. Texas going up against Wheeler, that's going to be your leverage for sure with how popular Wheeler is going to be given the rest of the pitchers on the slate. And then the Philly bats going up against Gray. You kind of want to look for the guys that don't strike out often. Just because, you know, Gray, he lives and dies with the strikeout. If he can strike you out, it's going to do fantastic. If not, he has shown that he can struggle so far this season. Harper, he's day-to-day, so just make sure he's in. He's got one of the lower strikeout rates of these guys. Real Muto has got a low strikeout rate. And same with Alec Bohm. I think those were like the three that I was noticing when I was doing some of the research. But outside of those three, you know, Schwarber's got fantastic numbers, Gregorius, Hoskins, etc. So Philly, I don't know how to gauge them going up against Gray. Like I said, Gray can shut things down, but Philly don't strike out very often against right-handed pitching. So I think that's kind of where things are headed. So for your cash build, it's going to be Wheeler. It's going to be jam in a whole bunch of these San Diego guys, throwing in, you know, Machado, Profar, Voit, Alfaro for sure. He's probably my favorite guy there. Maybe I'll make him the cover of this video. And on down, and you can just kind of fill in as you go. So that's kind of where the cash build is going to be going. GPP, I think you got two choices. Depends if do you want to go GIOLITO and kind of risk him. Oh, I also want to say like Carrasco, before I get too far, Carrasco, totally fine. I love him as an SP2. It's just you're probably not going to get all of those San Diego bats that you want, but if you put him in as an SP2, totally fine. No issues with that. But GIOLITO, you know, if you want to go with that route in GPP, if you don't go the GIOLITO route, maybe you want to go with the John Gray route and hopefully get his strikeout upside numbers that way. It would be extra risky to go both of them. Obviously, it's a 4-game slate. You got to be different somehow, but I think that would be just a little too risky. So I think picking one of those guys, and then probably targeting one of these, the New York Mets or the Houston Astros. I think, or the Toronto Chicago White Sox game. Like I said, this has the highest over/under on the slate. But obviously, if you're going GIOLITO, don't stack Toronto. I shouldn't have to say that. But I do see lines in contests that look just like that. But yeah, so maybe a GIOLITO and a Chicago stack. Because if you think GIOLITO is going to, or if you think Chicago White Sox are going to do well on offense, maybe GIOLITO gets in line for the win. Could be a nice correlation play for you. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, that kind of covers things. There's not much to talk about on just a 4-game slate, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, so I'm not sure if there's gonna be a video out for the main slate, but we will have another video out for sure on Thursday. So please go check that out. I don't know if it's gonna be a double slate on Thursday. I haven't looked at the schedule. Sometimes it is, but please come back on Thursday. And yeah, so good luck in your contest as always, and we will see you in the next video.